So the strategy I just demonstrated in my lesson was called leveled questioning. And the strategy is based on the idea that students learn best when they move from simple thinking to more complex thinking. So instead of asking, one question that's very specific, I ask basic questions where they recall the information and then they think about it in another way and then they put it all together. And basically that comes in three levels. So level one is our recalling, which is our basic facts, the things we've already learned. Level two is our explanation, where I'll ask a question and it's pretty simple and students are able to explain what they think. And level three is an analysis and evaluation. This is where students are going to use their critical thinking skills. So in my lesson, I asked a question where how might life have been different if the Civil War never happened. So they're kind of putting themselves in somebody from the time period shoes, and they have to explain why life might be different. Or I also asked what modern issue could be compared to the disagreement between the North and the South that makes them, think about current times as to, what happened at that time. So that progression is closely connected to the concepts from Bloom's taxonomy, and also I used Costa's levels of inquiry, which is kind of based on Bloom's taxonomy. So my rationale behind the strategy is that it supports differentiation and access for learners, especially students with IEPs. So for my one theoretical student, JR, who had an IPT, this is pretty important because he benefits from structured learning. He also benefits from a progression of difficulty, and doing this activity allows him to build confidence before being challenged. So basically, when they're working in groups, he can be validated by the other students in his group, hearing his opinion and what he knows. So these leveled questions allow that to happen because these students can successfully answer level one questions so that they build confidence and gradually move into more complex thinking. It also helps them with participation because every student can engage at some level even if they're not ready for higher level analysis yet. So in the lesson I just did, I applied those leveled questions to the causes of the American Civil War, and I started out with some examples. So with my level one, I asked students to recall basic facts. So I did a key issue, like what was the main cause of the American Civil War, and they had slavery, and this made sure I understood that the students had a foundation. Then I moved to level two, where I asked a couple of questions, and it was basically, I had students explain concepts like why slavery and economic differences cause conflict. And at this stage, I also modeled support strategies by repeating and rephrasing student responses to make them clearer and more accessible. And then at the level three, I asked students to evaluate whether the war could have been avoided, and this made students have to think about it critically, and they formed their own argument. I did pause and listen to students, and I repeated their answers. And this models how I would support real students, especially those with IEPs, by validating responses and clarifying their thinking. So overall, I think this strategy works because it builds confidence through early success, encourages deeper thinking over time, and supports diverse learning through scaffolding. For students like JR, it reduces frustration and increases engagement because they're just not overwhelmed by a completely difficult question, and they're allowed to build up their confidence. And then for my other theoretical student, who I haven't really mentioned yet, was DB, and it helps him recall information in chunks so that he can put the information together in a longer period of time, and that leads to him having a more complete response. In a real classroom, I would extend this by having students work in small groups and create their own leveled questions, which helps them understand their thinking level of the questions and how they should go about thinking of these complex questions that I would ask later on. So overall, I think leveled questions is a simple but powerful way to make content accessible while still promoting critical thinking.